I think what's unusual about this debate and this vote is you kind of agree with people who are lobbying you on both sides of the debate, and that's why this is so difficult, because you're trying to find, as a parliamentarian, a way to reconcile two truths, two valid arguments. People who very strongly feel that this is about the alleviation of unnecessary suffering. And as Ben says, people on the other side of the argument who are deeply worried about the protection of vulnerable individuals from coercion, not just sort of direct coercion from people around them, but also coercion through sort of societal attitudes to disability, to illness, to death. As well. And I think for me, the thing I'm really struggling with as a vote approaches is whether these sort of huge principles, these kind of life and death principles, can be separated out from some of the practicalities that are not, almost by necessity, can't really be covered by the bill, whether that is, the licensing of drugs that would be used for this, the role of medical professionals in the process. And I think, as well as feeling the weight of the kind of moral weight of this decision that we've got to make, I think the weight of the detail of this and the need to get this right, given it is a life and death issue, I think is something that's on all parliamentarians' minds at the moment.
I mean, Brent McDougall, what would you say to one of our listeners who says, I just don't get why MPs are even having to think about their vote on assisted dying? The overwhelming majority of people just want the choice, so give people that choice.
I think, well, for me, I think there's a worry that it may not be a real choice. It may not be a real choice for a few reasons. Palliative care in this country is simply not good enough. Tens of thousands of people, according to cancer charities, according to end-of-life charities, are not getting the care that could extend their life, that could make the end of their life less painful. And so I think whether it's a real choice compared to the potential to
but nonetheless, even if you have your qualms, if you're a representative of the people, and if, as seems the case, a clear majority of people think it's time for this, shouldn't you reflect that?
Well, I of course, but I've also got to exercise my judgment. And the other point on choice is about the societal pressure. So when you look at those opinion polls and you ask the question as to why people support it, one of the most common answers is people do not want to be a burden. And that goes back to that idea of societal pressure. So when you speak to a lot of disabled people about this, they are deeply worried that this does start to become a duty rather than a right for people who feel they would be a burden on their families. And so that's what I mean about trying to balance, the idea of autonomy with the idea of protection of the vulnerable. And we've got to, as MPs on Friday, find a way of reconciling those two things.